1 FM and AM 1160. That fella over there is Bob Pollock from the Extension Service. He joins us. Our conversation brought to you by Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. And you can give Bob a call right now, 479-1160 if you'd like, or 349-WCCS. Ask him a question about your lawns, your gardens, your trees, and all of that good stuff. Morning.
Good morning.
We're in the season of autumn now.
We are.
Yeah. And boy, the weather changed.
In a hurry.
It was summer one day and autumn the next on the calendar and in the great outdoors as well.
Most definitely.
I want to talk about frost.
Okay.
Because we haven't had any yet, and there's not really a threat of any soon. But it typically you get to late September and you're thinking about that because you might have already had your first frost. It's not been that way this year.
That's right. That's good so far.
Yeah.
But usually by the second week of October,
Mm-hmm.
we get one. It might be light, but usually we need to prepare for that.
Yeah.
And definitely by the third week of October, we've usually had something somewhere.
Yeah.
It may not be cover the whole county, but it might get you where you live.
Yeah.
Up there in the northern
In
hinterlands.
the Arctic Circle of
Yeah.
Indiana County.
So now's the time to be. So if you have plants
Mm-hmm.
that are a little bit tender, so those house plants that you've had out for the summertime,
Yeah.
we definitely need to be prepared to move those
Mm-hmm.
either indoors or transition them from the outdoors to maybe it could be an unheated porch or it could be a garage.
Uh-huh.
If you're not ready to put them in. And by doing that, it would also give you an opportunity that if there's some problems, maybe some insects that are lingering around on those plants,
Mm-hmm.
whether they be aphids or mites, even sometimes some scale insects can get on those tender tropical plants,
Mm-hmm.
that gives you time to let them transition, still give them more light, hopefully, not in a completely dark garage or something like that, but
Yeah.
we don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But just a place where you can kind of observe them, corral them in a way, and then watch them and then check them out, and then before you move them into the place where they'll be for the winter inside.
Well, in the springtime, we talk about training plants to be outdoors to handle the wind and everything like that. And so they need to be trained a little bit, exposed to it a little at a time in order to be able to survive outdoors. Is the reverse true, too? We need to train the plants to come indoors?
A little bit. It's maybe not as critical, or
Mm-hmm.
it's a little different when you're moving them out than when you're moving them back in. Probably the biggest two things that we'll find when we move them back indoors is lower light levels and less humidity.
Okay.
Probably two key things.
Mm-hmm.
And going the other way, there tends to be more stressors because the light levels can drastically increase, which can mess them up in a hurry. They can dry out so much faster. And we usually don't have that drying out issue as much when we move them back indoors. It takes a little bit of time for that to happen. And then the wind factor too. They're not used to that wind and going out.
Yeah, it beats them up a little bit.
It's not a big deal for the calm air moving back in.
Mm-hmm.
So
All right, so it's not a bad idea then to move them in maybe for a portion of the day as it gets to the late afternoon, and then take them back out in the morning.
yeah, or mid to late morning, depending on those overnight temperatures.
Yeah.
When we get down into the 40s, a lot of those plants want it. Kind of their minimum temperatures are around 50 to 55 degrees in that neighborhood.
So if we're looking at a forecast
So-
that says it's going to be 70 today, we that doesn't mean that at 7 o'clock in the morning when you set them out there, it's 70.
That's right, because it could be 45 or 40.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's one thing. I also wanted to talk about the effect of frost on your lawn and slowing down what has been a very, very rapid growing season. We're still getting grass that's as high as it was in the springtime.
We are.
And is frost the number one factor that's going to slow that down?
No, I mean, that will kind of finish things off, really. It's more the temperature of the soil and the number of hours of light that we have during the day. So our days keep getting shorter by around a minute every day. So that starts to signal plants that it's time to back off. And then also then the soil temperature will really kind of finish them off when we finally get down, into the 40s, 50s into the 40s soil temperature wise. Then that really signals those perennial plants to prepare for what's coming.
and as the leaves are beginning to fall now, and we're still mowing our lawns, we're basically just driving over those leaves and chopping them up, which is probably the proper thing to do.
It's a good thing to do. As long as you do it
really
often enough to chop them up, and you don't have this whole layer completely covering the yard when you're
matting it down.
And some leaves are easier to shred. Of course, when they're drier, they're going to crack up and break up much easier and make smaller particles that'll sift down in, because we really want that to kind of move down in the canopy of the turf there and get closer to the soil, to act as a organic matter that will help eventually to feed the plants.
I know I've asked you this question before, and I don't know that the season makes a difference in the answer or not. It probably does not. But the sharpness of the blades on your mower deck and their effect on the grass that you're mowing, if it's not a sharp blade and it's basically just tearing away and chewing away at your grass as opposed to making off a nice clean slice, I would assume that makes a big difference in the health of the blade of grass. Is that correct?
It does. That dull blade tends to cause some shredding at the end of that leaf. Instead of making a nice straight edge cut, clean cut, which will heal over quicker, that shredding effect it almost beats the grass a little bit too, because the blade's dull, and so it can tear that. So if you take some leaf blades off and look at them closely, you may need a little bit of magnification to do that. I know I would. But you can see that it's not a nice clean cut. So that allows the opportunity for maybe some disease organisms, things to, and also then it doesn't heal over as quick, so you can get some browning. You can kind of sometimes see just a little bit of a yellowish to brown cast, and the tips of that will die back a little bit. Whereas usually when they're cut straight off, we don't see any of that.
One of my neighbors mows her grass with the push mower that doesn't, the non-motorized push mower.
And reel to reel.
Yes, she gets out there with that baby, and I noticed it yesterday because she keeps her lawn really, really trimmed up. She's only, I think, 19 years old, and she mows mom and dad's lawn faithfully. And I noticed yesterday as we were taking our walk by that her beautiful lawn now has patches of brown in it, and pretty large patches of brown in it that have just shown up in the last week or so. And I was thinking about the army worms we were talking about last week, if that might be a cause, or if there's some other thing that has to do with it.
Yeah, there could be several things that could cause that. There's a dollar spot and brown spot, and so there's some diseases that will cause patches like that to die.
The fact that she keeps it pretty low, would that make any?
When it's low in general, that tends to stress the plant. Because there's not enough foliage on there that plant can function the way it really needs to.
Okay.
So that's why we always like to cut it higher, at least 2.5 inches high. We can sometimes go a little lower than that, but keeping it up there helps shade the ground, so it causes the soil to not heat up as much either. That's another thing that the grass usually, our cool season turfs don't like real well, is to have real warm conditions. So having that up there is more healthy for the plant. So having it shorter can cause stress to begin with, and then we could have some diseases that are moving in. We've had temperatures and things which could cause that to happen and get some patches to melt out. And then, of course, the other thing is some insects, soil insects, the grubs of Japanese beetle and May and June beetle and European chafer is another thing that can cause patches to. That's usually how they start, because you've got an egg mass that was laid there by an adult beetle. Mm-hmm. Those eggs hatch, and then those larvae start to move out and feed on the plant roots. So this time of year, you can dig up those dead areas, mm-hmm. and you can also check and grab some of the turf at the perimeters of that and see if the whole turf lifts up. Then you know your roots have been eaten off.
Okay.
And of course, with diseases, we can usually look at those leaf blades and see some brown spots or bands on those brown leaves, which will then indicate that we've got some fungal issues going on.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're getting into the fall season, and preparing your lawn and your trees and your shrubs and everything for the winter probably going to be a topic we visit a couple of times in the next few weeks.
But now we're at a stage where we can prep for the fall, prep for a chance of frost coming up in the next few weeks. Although it looks
Can't
like
wait.
Next week's going to be a little cooler, but we're going to warm up again,
mm-hmm.
Into the 70s, and then following that back into the 60s. At least that's what it looks like now.
Yeah. Okay. So all of that on the agenda. It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS 101.1 FM and AM 1160. And coming up top of the hour, it'll be a check of news from Fox, and then Josh Widdison in our WCCS newsroom. We then visit with you from the sports desk, which is a very busy place to be today. It is, after all, Friday in September.
It's the Train Unstoppable event. Unstoppable solutions and unbelievable deals. There's never been a better time to buy a Train. When you buy a new energy-efficient heating and cooling system, you save today and lower your energy costs over time.